Hi folks, welcome. This is a short video lecture for a college seminar on goal setting, and also I'm going to talk at the beginning about soft skills. So I'm going to get right into it. To talk about soft skills, so you might ask, what is a soft skill? It might be easier to define it by thinking about its opposite. So the opposite of a soft skill is a hard skill. And a hard skill is like technical know-how, a thing you need to know how to do. So knowing how to fix a computer, for example, is a hard skill. If you're a nursing student, learning how to do all the little things that nurses need to know how to do, putting the IV in and all this kind of thing, those are hard skills, so technical know-how. On the other hand, in everything you do in life, there are going to be soft skills involved. And so these are all the kind of, I guess you would say, it's kind of the way you go about doing the things you do. Not the technical things you do, but the way you go about doing kind of everything. And so, when you talk about soft skills, you'll talk about things like interpersonal skills, communication skills, emotional intelligence, time management. And so in this course, we're going to be talking about a lot of soft skills. And it's not for no reason. I can tell you, as someone who teaches primarily first-year college students, it's often the soft skills that really get in the way of student success. Plenty of students are more than capable of doing the academic work, but it's all these soft skills. It's the way you go about doing what you're doing that can be very challenging. And so goal setting and motivation are, two big soft skills. So some of the most important, soft skills we'll talk about, especially at the beginning, are, accepting personal responsibility, self-motivation, self-management. These things all work together. We talked about motivation, and one of the things I said in our discussions is that it's important to have intrinsic motivation, which essentially means you're doing what you're doing because you choose to do it, you want to do it. We know in psychology, they do research on this, intrinsic motivation is way more helpful than extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is when you do something because you have to do it. Intrinsic motivation is you do something because you choose to do it, because you want to do it. And why would you want to do it? Well, that's because, you've got a goal. You've got something you want to achieve in your life. And so it's personal. You have ownership over it. You're in the driver's seat. This is why it's so important to have, both short and long-term goals, and to always remember kind of why it is you're here in college. I can tell you from my experience, probably the biggest obstacle first-year students have is they're in college and they don't really know why they're there. And so that means they don't have that intrinsic motivation. When you don't have that intrinsic motivation in college, that is a huge problem, because in college you're expected to be independent adults, who want to be there and who can get things done. So if you don't have that intrinsic motivation, it's going to be a real challenge. If you don't have that intrinsic motivation, it's going to be hard to accept personal responsibility, just acknowledging that your success is ultimately up to you. The school is here to give you resources. Your professors are here to teach you and help you, but you have to be responsible kind of for your outcomes. And if you're not doing as well as you'd like to, then it's your responsibility to figure out why that might be and come up with some solutions to those problems. Because in college, nobody's going to do that for you. And finally, self-management. So these things come together, and you've got to think about how you're going to get all your tasks done. And so that's kind of the last step. If you've, got the motivation, you accept the responsibility, then you're ready to move on to the management part, which I'll talk about in a different lecture. And so some other soft skills: interdependence, growing supportive relationships with students, your peers, your professors, your advisors, other staff and faculty. It's always helpful to have a network to rely on. Self-awareness, and throughout the course, when we talk about all these different things, I know the concepts might be self-evident, they might be kind of obvious. I don't mean to insult your intelligence with this material, but the reason why we do it is because practicing these things is much more difficult than understanding the basic concepts. So being aware of yourself and how you're doing. Are you on track? Are you not on track? You having trouble with motivation? You having trouble with time management? Whatever it might be. People who are successful at things are always taking stock of what they're doing well and what they could improve on, and they're trying to solve the problems when it comes to the things that they could improve on. And, lifelong learning, I especially at Trocare, I notice some of these students, they really just enjoy the process of getting back in the game of education, because education is a edifying thing. It should be something that should improve your quality of life beyond just getting the degree to get the job. And so hopefully in college, at some point in one way or another, you'll begin to dedicate yourself to this lifelong learning, which is about not just getting your credentials, but it's about, your personal development, your quality of life. I really believe in that. Other soft skills, so emotional intelligence, and this kind of gets into the topic of this lecture. Emotional intelligence is being aware of your own emotions. When you've got a seemingly impossible number of things to get done, if you're frustrated, if you're struggling, okay, a lot of negative emotions come up, and we know also from research that when you're experiencing these negative emotions, it makes it that much harder to get things done. And so it's important to always be aware of the emotions you're having, why you're having them, and to try to get into a place where you're thinking positively about your obstacles, about your responsibilities, and so forth. And so that's something with the goal setting and the time management unit we're going to talk a little bit about, and believing in yourself. And so another struggle people often have is doubting themselves. And so I can tell you this, I'm not going to wax too philosophical, but and we're going to talk about this more when we talk about the science of learning and that kind of thing. But we know from research, again, if you put in the work, then you're going to learn what you need to learn, And so if you're motivated, you're going to put in the work. And so, you're all here in college because the school believes in you. So you should believe in yourself. Because you can do it if you do the work. It's a matter of doing the work and solving problems when they arise. It's not a matter of whether you can do it. It's a matter of how you do it. So this all takes us to setting goals, because setting goals is probably one of the first and most important factors in all these soft skills, And so when you think about setting a goal, 3 simple things here: value, expectation, and motivation. So what does that mean? So the value is, why do you consider something important? And, in our discussion so far, you all have just amazing reasons why you want to be in college, why you want to become a nurse. Like I talked about intrinsic motivation, a lot of you have a dream, you want to be a nurse. A lot of you have kids, you want to be able to do better, taking care of them with a better job in the future. A lot of you just have and I really respect this a lot, just have a desire to help others, to care for others. And so those are intrinsic motivators. Those are things you value that are personal to you, that will help you get motivated. And then the second part is expectation. So do you believe you can do it? Like I said a moment ago, the school believes you can do it. I believe you can do it. You should believe you can do it. You've got to manage your time. You've got to do the work. You've got to solve problems, but you can do it. And so these things add up to the motivation. Are you doing something because you truly care about yourself? Do you believe in yourself and your ability to get it done? It all adds up. It all adds up to these factors all add up to how motivated you'll be. And so, not just in this course, in this reflection, but throughout your college career, it's important to always go back to that thing, and that thing is, why did I come here? What am I trying to get done? And you can think, picture, well, in 5 years, where am I going to be? How is it going to be better than where I am today in my personal life? by getting this degree, and you all have great reasons. You all have great reasons, but it can be important to remember those reasons and reflect on them. And so that's what we're doing in this unit. And I think you're off to a great start with that. So I will leave it there after I've finished this last bit about how to set a goal. So the different parts of an effective goal, and we'll do more about this, moving forward. But the first one is it has to be dated. So having a timeline, if you say I want to get my nursing degree, but I have unlimited amount of time to get it, you're not going to have that sense of urgency about getting that degree completed. And so having a sense of urgency, it needs to be done by this time. Some of these goals will be, some of these deadlines will be given to you by others, but you've got to create some for yourself as well. And it's important to create a deadline for yourself so that you can find that motivation and get it done at a certain time in a timely manner. Achievable is something achievable. And I think this is good, especially for someone going into the medical field. If you're starting out with, a degree program for an associate's to get your RN, that's a good achievable goal for the short term. Now, in the long term, if you want to have higher ambitions, you want to think about maybe becoming a physician's assistant or MD. Those are good long-term goals to have, but it's important to have those shorter-term goals that are more achievable in the immediate future. And that could be maybe not even a degree. That could be simply, I want to get at least a B in this anatomy and physiology course. And that's very achievable, very realistic. So even if you want to dream big, it's also important to think in the shorter term about things that are very achievable in the short term. And I'll, talk about that in a moment and then why that's important. Personal, like we just talked about, your goals need to be something that you truly do care about. They need to be intrinsic, not extrinsic, and positive. And so it's always good to avoid goals that are about avoiding something negative. You want to keep it positive. I want to achieve this because I want to have this in my life. That's a good way to go about it. They always say with like weight loss, you don't want to buy yourself clothes that are too small, as a motivation, because that's negative motivation. You're saying like, I don't fit these clothes now. I want to fit these clothes in the future. And then you just look at those clothes and you feel sad because you don't fit them and you just paid for them. That's like a really bad weight loss strategy. But the reason why it is a bad weight loss strategy is because it's a negative goal. You want your goals to be positive, not negative, because the positive goals make you feel good, and that's a part of the process. You've got to feel good about what you're trying to achieve. And just that, again, emotional intelligence, that positivity, it really does help propel you forward. And finally, specific. And so the more specific you can be, the better. In the short term, you can be extremely specific. And then as you kind of get more long-term, things are going to get a little bit more vague. But it's important to have these short-term specific goals with deadlines that are positive and that are meaningful to you, because this is what keeps you going, especially when things get challenging, especially when you guys must be putting in at least 14-hour days between, your care duties, your work and your schoolwork. So kudos to you on how hard you work. But throughout all that, it's really important to keep the positive feelings about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the last thing I'd say just has to do with goal setting, and again, this positive emotional kind of state you want to be in. I'll send an article out later, but in psychology, they study this, they really do. And one of the things they found is when we have these short-term goals that are well-defined and they're achievable, and we achieve them, we kind of get like a rush of dopamine, and like it feels good. It just feels good to get that thing done, you know. And when it feels good to get it done, then you feel like going on to the next one. And this is how people become really productive, you know. You have this rhythm of these achievable short-term goals. Could just be a to-do list of the things you got to get done. I'm sure you all already do this to a degree, but yeah, you get that shot of dopamine, and it propels you forward to do the next task, and that's a key to motivation and to achieving goals, and to just generally having that positive state of mind that helps you get things done. And I guess that's the key takeaway, I would say, in terms of emotional intelligence and goal setting. You want to try your best to always think about the positive aspects of what you're doing while you're doing. And the reason why that's so is because you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to have periods of time where it seems like you have an impossible number of tasks to do. You're going to get tired of reading. You're going to get tired of lectures. You know, throughout all that, and those are just, that just comes with the territory of being college students. Throughout all that, you want to go back to those personal goals to maintain that positive emotion. And you want to set those short-term goals to keep that dopamine, you know, flowing, so that you feel good about, you know, just getting your tasks done. It really, I'm sure you all know this, but it really does feel good. You have a to-do list, you're checking things off, you're getting things done. They call it a flow state, you know. You're just working, getting things done. Even though you might not love every task, it feels good because you're doing work and things are getting done. And you're moving forward, you know, towards that personal goal that you've set for yourself. Okay, I think that's enough. I've spoken longer than I wanted to. I will be in touch again shortly.